Okay, Paul, can you hear me? Recording. Okay. Hi, everyone. This is Impact for ACT, and we're going to show you today the custom form designer. Now, if you know ACT, then you know if we look at one of the ACT classic layouts in here, ACT is just pretty much square boxes here and not much functionality on focus events and such. But we have some custom ones here. We have impact theme applied. And what you can see is the impact themes. We have rounded themes in here, and we also have focus events here. So as the users walk onto different areas, you can see that it focuses, and we have the lookup right here. So let's go in and see how this was done. By doing so, we go to the Tools menu, to Design Layout. Now, these at the bottom, that's ACT's classic ones. We want to go to Impact Contact. And this is our designer. Now, you're used to designer inside of ACT where you can grab fields and move them around. Some of the functionality that we have on here is, as you can see, is just simple snap to grid. So you can line things up rather easily by dragging the mouse around. You can also select any one of these controls, and over here on the properties, we have background color, border color, everything else in a more modern design. So if I wanted to change that border color, say of these controls, I would just go in here and change the border color, and you can see how they're a pinkish border color. All right, well, let's go and look over here. This is our toolbox area on the left. If we go to the fields area first, these are the fields in the ACT database. So if I want to add the home address on here, I'm just going to drag the home address out. And what it does by default, it gives you the name, the label of the field, and the field itself, and it defaults to your last selected one. So as we can see, we have a blue background here. Let's go to the next control. We're gonna stay here on the toolbox, and let's just go to our controls. So what are controls? I mean, they're not fields, they're not controls. We can have things like just a label. We just need a label on the screen, and I can say my label. Now remember, again, up here in this properties, I can change everything back here, font color, font size, and everything else, all done with the properties control over here. Let's go back to this side, the controls. Well, I may want a label that displays age. We have things like that. So birthdays will show up as 48 years old. We might create a label that's data driven. I want it to look like a label, but I want the agent's cell number. Just use the one field in here. So there's a label. It's not read-only in the ACT database, but it's read-only in the designer. It's just a label inside of here. Let's get rid of these two controls. Let's look at the next item. Again, up in the toolbox, we have lists. What are lists? Lists, I think, are one of the more powerful items inside of here, where I'm just creating some room for myself, where instead of hunting down here through the activities, opportunity tabs and things, we can present that list of information on the top level. So I'm going to say list of activities. I'm going to drag that onto the screen here, and it brings up a little properties window. I'm just going to say okay and accept all the defaults. And now I have a list of the activities above the fold up here. So that's the list. I can have documents, companies, contacts, history, notes, any list I want up there. Let's go to the next toolbox, the containers. So say if we wanted a container here, like a panel. So if I just grab the panel, dragged it on, again, it brings up our properties. Now, one thing about these properties windows, I'm just going to say okay to close that down. We can get to that properties over here at any time. So if we select a control, yes, we have some top level properties, but we might have more properties under our control. And if I click on properties, there I am back. I say, you know, I want the border color to be X. I want the fill color to be Y. I can do that with a panel. And once a panel is done on site, here, there we go. Once the panel is done here, of course, then we can drag all of our controls into the panel. And what's nice about that is now we have a simple panel control that we can move and place around the screen. So that's panels. We also have tabs. So let's go to our theme tab, we call it. Let's drag that onto the screen. Again, it brings up our properties window. It adds 2 tabs by default. I can add a 3rd tab, and I could say this is my tasks tab or whatever. I could select the background color of that task tab. I can actually even change the icon of it. As you can see here, we're changing the icons of these. Once that's done in here, if we just say OK, there is your new tab control. And again, if I click on properties, I can go back and modify, make any changes I want to this. So that is tabs. The last item is buttons. And what I want to do is I want to close this down. No, because I want to reopen it up because I did a lot of little work in there. And I just want to go back to my original one. There we go. So the next item is the toolbox area. So if I go to the buttons, we have some specialized buttons like I have a save button. I have a button to attach a file to the current contact. But we also have buttons like create an activity button. What's nice about this create activity button is, again, it's a button right on the screen, and I could say create, follow up, whatever we wanted to say on the screen. I could select an image for that button to say create a follow up. Again, let's use the calendar. And I could say, well, what type of activity do we want? So these are all your activities inside of ACT. So I want to create an appointment. And I also could set it up to start in so many days in the future. So that's very nice inside of here. So we said do this, select the image again. Let's select the image, say OK. And there is our button on the screen. All right, so that's buttons over here. We can get very advanced in the buttons too, is we can create a whole series of events. This is dynamic scripting here. And I could say, hey, I want to create a call. So if I just double click, I have a script that's going to run and create a call. But after I create the call, I may want to just create a history. So I can just create a history on side of here. And then I can create a entry in a custom table. I have a mortgage table online. So I can say create a mortgage table entry, create an opportunity, do whatever I want to do inside of here. So that's really powerful where you can set down a set of scripts to run. And in fact, you can continue on with this, and you may want to run all these. You may have 5 buttons at the same time as a workflow pattern. So we have another control here called workflow pattern, workflow. I'm going to drag that onto the screen. And I'm going to move it over here. Now in this workflow pattern, I can make it as big as I want. And what's going to happen is when activated, you can click on run workflow. It's going to run whatever's inside of this workflow. So I'm actually going to put in those 2 buttons, which means now when I run the workflow, it's going to create the follow-up phone call, and then it's going to run my custom script. And there, follow-up is a typo. So again, I can go back into here at any time and change that. Okay, that's the 6 areas that I wanted to show you. Sorry. That's the 5 areas I want to show you. There's more under widgets, but that's going to be on an advanced tutorial. Okay, thank you very much. And I'm out. I'll edit all that out. So that'll give me something. So let's go. So we can go in some deep dive stuff now. And I could take us around. Let's see, we got a few more attendees here. Cool. What I'm going to do for the next couple minutes is go into more of the deep dive, right? So again, for those that didn't jump in the beginning, what we have here is a custom form designed with the Impact Designer. And now I have a custom form. If I go into design layouts, we have Impact contact layouts. Now, if we go to Impact or to Axe layout still sees us. Here's Axe layout editor. And you can come into here and you can move things around in Axe. It uses our controls inside of it, but it doesn't have much functionality inside of here. You know, you can't do much with it. And that's why when we came along, we said, well, we wanted a more powerful designer. We come along and we say, here's our designer. So our designer is built from scratch. Our designer is built from ground up. So here's our designer in here. Well, let's just look at some of these fields. What can we do with this panel over here on the right? Like I was saying here, if I select contact, well, I may want contact to have a different border color. So I can highlight that, and that's always going to be a red border color. I can set alignments and text and width, and as you see, as I move this, you'll see my width bar moves and my height bar. So if I come along and do this, there's all the height and width bars. But the one thing is you can come in here and say, I want this to be 190 width, and it will do it for you. But the easier thing to do is to just snag it, grab it, and it will align to the right side of all the controls. And of course, if you want to grab all these controls and make them of equal width, we have all that here. You know, align them on the left, make them equal distance, and do all that. We have that. Send to front and send to back, things like that. Tab order, now that we're talking about this toolbar, here's how you go and you set your tab order. You just come along, and it's a click by example. So you just come along and click on the ones in the order that you want that. All right, under this control here, we do have a theming convention. Now, themes, I really like themes here. Right now, I have an apply theme button up here. So if I just go and say, hey, I don't want to grab each one of them and change their color, I can say apply a theme. And I have 6 themes. The classic theme, and this is just an example. It shows you of the theme. Classic is just the square. Underline theme is just that. There's just an underline. Colorful is a square with it. Border themes, that's the one I have turned on. But say I wanted to select everything. What we do, we're going to apply this theme to the entire layout. So I'm going to change it to blue, and I'm going to say apply the rounded theme. And as you can see, it changed everything for us. Now, inside of each one of these controls, too, ACT always does the label and then the text box. And I always found that kind of annoying, having to grab 2 controls, to grab side one. So what we've done is we've added the label straight into the control itself. So what I'm doing is I'm just making all these controls Y. Now, of course, that does have a label on it, but over here, we do have areas to say show or hide the label. So now I'm putting a label on side of there. And again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a theme across all these. Let me just do that. Now I'm going to go back to apply a theme. It remembers my rounded color theme, but over here it says hide or show labels. I'm going to say show labels. And see the way the theme designer preview kind of shows you? So there's the themes. I'm going to apply the rounded themes, and now I have a theme to my entire layout. And again, this is why we can turn them on and off. As you can see, like the extension, well, that theme's not really working out because the label's taking up most of the text box. So I can do a couple of things inside of here. I can say to that one specific control, I want to hide that theme. So it's just an extension. Really, this acts as our label for that. So you could do granularly change things inside of here. Well, let's go and look at a couple of different layouts that I did in here. Say changes, no. Let's just leave it back into here. So again, using the drop down, here I have a theme that I just called it a colorful theme, right? So I just added panels, I made things square, the text boxes here are blue background, why they're green over here. And again, it was just showing you a bit of the color. Here's one of the themes, which is I like, which is just pure underline. So these, of course, are, city, state, zip. And when I focus on them, as you can see, they focus with an underline, just like the modern internet does. Here, you can have that happening inside of ACT for you. So that's an underline theme. And we also talked about one with the list. So here, if I click on this, here's a theme I have applied, and this is the contact. Sorry, this is the task list. So I have the task list here. Now I could go down here and show the task list here too. And if I change this, and options, act up. I can have the activities here, or I can have the activities up here. The activities up here have a color rule applied to them. So they're showing us in a different color order. I can apply the color rules down here too, but let's just stay on the designer. So let's go into, let's go into one of the original ones. So here's ACT's original one, and designer and impact contact. So here it is, an original ACT layout, right out of the can. So I'm just going to say, hey, I want to apply themes. So I'm going to turn off the labels. I'm going to apply apply theme. Let's go with a different color. Let's go with an orangey color and apply the theme. And as you can see, it applies again the theme across the entire surface. And if you had fields that were down here also, it would apply the themes to all the controls here. In fact, let's go here. This is 10 by 24. I'm going to go to another theme. Let's start 13. So there's an ACT's other theme, tools, designer layout. Okay. Over here, what just happened, and this is by design, that ACT theme, that layout, 1366 by 768, is a very old layout, like pre-ACT 2020. And they did things a little bit differently pre-ACT. And so what we're saying here with impact is, hey, the layout needs to be updated to a current version of ACT. This only happens one time. If I say okay, what happens is we open up the layout in ACT's layout designer, and then when we save the layout, or ACT saves it, it's actually updating that layout to some more modern specs. Now that the 1366 is updated, now I can take it and put it into the impact designer. So now you'll see that we don't get that dialog box. And the reason why I was coming into one of these original ones, again, I was going to apply the theme. I'm going to apply the rounded theme. And as you can see, my user field, my contact access fields, my personal information, it applied the theme to everywhere on the system. Okay, that's themes. Let's go to controls. Let's dive into controls a little bit bigger here. On these controls, users may want to see the company information that this contact is attached to. This is just a singular company field. That's okay, but I want to see the company department or the ID or whatever. Well, under the controls, we have a company field control. Let's just drag that onto here. And it's going to put a field down here, and you can see this is the company database. So I want their division, right? And then I also want another field. Maybe I want their, they have a phone number, fax, phone. Yeah, phone number. So maybe I want to see their phone number right on this screen. And so that's displayed there. These are controls that you can come along and set themes to and everything else. They're just coming out with labels by default. One of the cool things that we do on here too is we kind of label the data entry field. So you see it has a little icon on there, which is the ACT icon for company. So we know that this is a company field, and this is not a company field. The same thing we do down here is like, oh, this is an email field. We also do web fields and things. So we have little indicators on there. But again, that's the company field. I swept over age label. So say we wanted to see how old something is, how long till they have to renew a subscription. If I come in and add this age label, let's say last email, and then I have down here what format we want. So you want to see it in days, it's going to say 365 days if it's a year old, or it's going to say months, days, year. Really depends on what you're looking at. A lot of people use like months, years for birth dates, but something like the last email field, maybe you just want to see it in days, or you want to see it in months. So that's the field there. Coming over here, if you want to add a new field, then this is where the new are. So if I want to add a new picture field, then when you drag that control onto the screen, the form comes up to, new field name to add the new field in. And if I hit finish, it would append it to the ACT database. So these are your new fields. Radio. Now radio is really cool. Let me go and change this. I'm going to go back into my other layout. I could use this layout. Let me go back into it. A radio control is just that. It's a radio button. Now I'm just going to move some of this stuff out of the way. Yeah, great. And let's go to controls and let's go to radio. So I'm going to put the radio control up there. Now the first thing, again, this is properties, it pops up. And again, if I said okay to this, I would just have to highlight the control and go back into the properties. This presents you with number fields out of the ACT database. So I have a AMA score and numbers score. And what this is doing is it's showing you an example. So maybe I have red, green, blue, and orange, right? Maybe I want purple too. Now what's going to happen is this going to be a value of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's how it's going to be saved in the database. So if I say update there, that's going to be the example. And you can see this is what it looks like behind. Now that might be really nice if you want a nice tall one like that. But we also have on this control the ability to say how many columns we have. So I'm going to change it to 3 columns, and this control can go up here. Now what's happening here is it's showing you the example of the radio controls, but it's also showing you number for color. That's the field it's attached to. So in the designer, it's always going to, if I drag and hold my mouse down, that's the way it's going to look when it's consumed. And this is in the designer, it shows us the field name. Let's go down here. Read only, again, that's more like a label too. People were looking for the word read only. So, if you drag your read only on, it does the same thing. It's a read only label kind of field. Populate cascading. So let's go and do this. So we're going to select a table from subscriptions, whatever. And this is a cascading editor. So we can then say, well, the email field, let's think of this as cars, as automobiles. Do we have a better automobile one? Let's go in here, go to properties. Oh yeah, automobile lookup, that's it. So I'm going to say this is automobile lookup, and I have make, model, manufacturer. So if I add this, it's going to say which field does that want to get added into. It's kind of the mapping system. I'm just going to select any field here. And you see manufacturer is going to go into the motivation field. You would build these up. And again, I am just selecting anything at the moment just to build them up. And then once they're built up and we say, okay, that's the control. And again, once it's consumed, it will show the drop downs, the cascading drop downs based on this on there. You can also have a cascading drop down from an Excel file. This is actually new in like 12.040 something. People have an Excel spreadsheet that they're getting from their manufacturer. Here's this month's price list and everything else. So instead of saying it's a source from the ACT database, you can say select it from an Excel file. So let's go to let's see. Sorry, guys. OS and to users, and go to this, and then go to desktop. There it is. All right, so I have an automobile Excel file, and if I come along and open this, it's just a standard Excel file with make, model, year, style. So let's just go say okay to that, and as you can see, it's going to use the same information, mapping system that is, but it's going to pull it from the automobile, the Autos XLS. So as you get a new one from again your manufacturer, you just drag it onto the server. Now this doesn't have to be local. This can be on the network. So that's really cool. It all gets updated that way. Let's say okay to that, and populating a lookup. Populating a lookup is kind of the same as cascading. It ends up being the same. There's a couple of different things, like it runs math functions. It actually has a more of a button kind of driven interface. And if we click on this, see, it's a lookup using all the preset conditions. It'll pull all the information in. It doesn't cascade. It just looks up those 4 field values for you. Okay. All right, that are the controls. Let me see if I have any questions. I am making these things around. No. Anybody have any questions? Or I'm going to see if I can just open up a bit of the audio and see how that works for us. So audio, where is it? Attendees. And yeah, Scott and Robert and Tom and Cynthia and Patrick and Paul. All right, so I unmuted you. Now you guys, I think you have your own mute system too. Oh, Scott Abood. Scott Abood had your hand raised. Forgot, what's up?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was going to type it up, but I'll go ahead and ask it. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you great, Scott. Yeah, but we're doing a very free form thing here. I want to be broken into. This isn't being recorded to go out. Only the first 5 minutes work. So great. I want to hear your question.
I noticed you've got those controls. I was thinking, can you make one of your controls, let's say the contact or the company or maybe the city or state control, where it actually looks up, if you click on the button, let's say I don't know, the city button next to the city, where it actually creates a lookup of all the contacts in the associated city that you're on.
Oh yeah. Let me close this out. Like that's one of the things in here. Let's just say no, and let me just go to one of our other layouts. Let's go back to the theme one, right? So what he was asking, like I said about this, here's the the company field. But if you go into like the title field here, right? Anytime you have focus, it puts a little lookup field there. Or you can say, you can right click on any field and do a lookup address field. And what it does, whether you use the right click or if you use this click, this is my lookup window. So by default, see that? So by default, the contact title contains CO. It takes it. So if I want to find everybody in a department that's an administrator, I literally just have to click once, click twice, and there it is. There's all my administrators. And if I want to change that, one of the things that I intentionally designed it this way, and you notice the lookup doesn't go away, right? So I can still say on the same lookup and say, oh, I meant human resources. Let me go and look up. Oh, we have no human resources. Technical support. Let's look up those. All right. This is the ACT demo database. So we don't have a lot.
Sales.
Right. We only have 200 records in there. But that's what happens. So we go back to the detail view, and I want to find everybody that's in, in this zip code. Again, I click on it. It pre-populates the lookup with the zip code, and I just say look up, and there I am. There's only 2 contacts with that zip code. Great question, Scott. Yes. And again, if you right click, I know, oh, Cliffy was supposed to, just on a side note, Cliffy was supposed to drive today's meeting, but he was unavailable. So we just did it away. And Cliffy's been using this data entry for a lot. And he's the one that, months ago was like, I only had the icon, I didn't have the right click event. And he's like, oh, I'm a right click kind of user. And me, I was never a right click user. So yeah, there's multiple ways to get into it. Oh, here, let me just show you this too. I love this control. Okay, let's go to the act. Let's go back to like the act one. One of the things that I always hate about this ID status, or any field that's multi-select, right, is if you come along and you select multiples of them, right, how do I know which ones they are? Really, that control just washes away. I don't know. Now, if I do a lookup for friends, yeah, he's there. But if I walk onto this record, I don't know what he is, right? So if I go to designer layout, I go to impact contact, and let me just get rid of this stuff over here. And let's see, where do I have that? Sorry, guys, I just, oh, yeah, multi-select, right? So here's the multi-select control. I'm going to drag it over here, and it's only showing me fields in the ACT database that have multi-select attached to them now. I don't know why state does, but ID status is a multi-select. And then if I say okay to that, let me just move some stuff around because I know my screen's kind of small for this demo. I'm going to take that ID status here, and I'm just going to say yes to that. And you see now, I'm walking onto it, I can see all of them. And anything that is checked, of course, is in a orange color. But I still have to scroll up and down. Well, that's still not giving me 100% coverage. So if I come into my designer again, and this status, I'm just going to make it a little bit wider. And again, highlight the control, go to properties, right? Play multiple columns, right? And I can change the color I want highlighted. So I don't know, I want it highlighted in blue. But I'm going to say display it as multiple columns. And then what happens is, there it is. So it's displayed. And if I had a third column, I could make the control. If I had 20 more or 10 more fields in there, conditions, it would wrap around. But there they are. So now, as you're walking onto records, oh, he's an influencer and a customer. Oh, this guy is, oh, look at it, he's a family friend, gatekeeper. I can't read that from here. So this is a control that I use a lot nowadays. And I know a few people that have found it are really loving it. Oh, one of the things too, I've been on the contact screen the whole time. If I go into impact, oh, and I'm going to go into the opportunity layout. And again, it's an older layout, so I have to click on, close it down, and save the changes, right? So if I go to tools, again, back here, tools, impact opportunities, well, I have the opportunity designer, and I have all those same controls. So that's really nice, decision based on requirements. All right, so this is the ACT demo database. So they have a requirements on here. Right, so I could put that requirement field, and I could see the 18. I don't know how many requirements are required for an opportunity in the ACT custom demo database. So let's just save that, and let's go to our opportunities. It's kind of fun. I'm doing this for the first time with you, and the detail view. There it is. So there are, right? So that is a great tool for the opportunity. Oh, they need data collection, engagement letter, intro email. I've also had users do this as a workflow pattern. Now, I'm not going to say do it all the time as a workflow, but, because the workflow, more of process and stage. But say you're in a stage and you have 10 things that have to happen to this opportunity, but they're not in a linear order. Like stage, I'm in presentation, negotiation, commitment to buy, but just say they said to me, oh, send me the commitment but we're going to negotiate next week. Well, if you move somebody to that, you're going to never send them a presentation or negotiation. So you can set this down over here and say, oh, well, we did the review and we did the on-site visit, but look, we never did the golf day out, you know? So again, it's not linear. It's like a checklist to make sure that that stage is completed. And I have a lot of customers now using that very easily. And again, any of the layouts, contact company, group, or opportunities. And of course, custom tables. That's where my designer came from. Like, let's go to I have this table called subscriptions, just demo data in here. And if I go into subscriptions, right? So here we are. We can see it's already been a theme applied to that. Let me take this a step further. There's a couple other really cool tools in here. Let's go into the designer. Now, when we're in a custom table, some of the controls are a little bit different. You know, most of them are about the same. But here we have, let's move these down here. We have attached contact. It's not the contact field. And we have the attached company fields, which are these controls I dragged on here. And again, what's nice about it is they are icon driven. So as we use this control, we can say, okay, well, that's the contact name. There's the contact. If I want to change the contact, you know, classic ACT stuff, right? This one gets really cool. This is what I like. Say I'm doing a webinar or a schedule, an event or something, and Mary calls me up and says, hey, I want to come and everything else. And you're like, well, Mary, we have your contact information? Or you say, all right, let me look up Mary. And we'll look up Mary, and we don't have Mary. When we don't have Mary, if you go to new contact, this is ACT's new contact. This is hard coded, right? So that all it gives you is company contact. It's nice, but it's hard coded. What we can do now with Impact is we can say new contact here. And you see this is a contacts field, but I'm able to design this data entry. So if we had existing fields inside of here, we can add them onto that. So really nice, you can design your own data entry for that, right? We can also edit the contact live, right? So give them an act. I wait for ACT to catch up with me. Come on, ACT. All right, we're gonna, as all you guys know in here, how to do this. All right, so we're gonna go back to a custom table because when you're adding contacts, when you're adding contacts to a custom table, you don't have to go back to the contact screen, especially if you're feeling like, I want their mobile numbers, I want their whatever, which aren't on those. Demo. Okay. Let's go into here. Again, all these screens are laying on top. Anybody else have another question for me? I'm just going down tangents, which I don't mind. I just don't want to go down tangents that I have covered. Scott, you have another question, or is that still your same one?
Yeah, I noticed that you're getting into the designer. One of the problems we've seen in ACT for years and years is secondary contacts where we can't add additional fields to a secondary contact. Has that been addressed in your add-on? Is it exposed, or does ACT not allow us to go into secondary contacts still and customize and add other fields to the secondary contacts?
We do not go in and adjust the ACT secondary contact tab, but what we told people to do is you just create a new custom table called secondary contacts. Then you have 100% fluidity where you can change, modify, add, delete any fields that you want. You know, so instead of being a subscription tab or a custom table or a mortgage tab, i.e., you'll create a custom table called secondary contacts, and you'll be able to modify anything you want in there.
But you lose the promotion, the ability to promote, and
Well, we can write a script for that, promoting them.
is there in regard to that, is there any way to link the two, like relationships? I know you at one point years ago you used to have your own relationships. Do you do anything with that anymore?
Oh yeah. I mean, just to do that. I mean, if we come into here, let's go into the designer. I'm on a subscription table, right? So say you wanted a child table of a custom table, like a grandchild table, right? So all you do is you go into the list, and here's all your child custom tables. So I'm on subscriptions, and on subscriptions, I want to see mortgages below that. So you just drag and drop it on there. So now this mortgage table is a grandchild or a child table to the subscription table. It's that easy. We don't make you go and set IDs and flags and everything else. You just come along and just drag and drop.
How deep can that go? Can it go 3 deep?
Yeah. So if we had here child table websites, right? So here we have a child table websites, right? So now we have the subscription, and we'll say new website, and this is our website one, right? If we go into the designer of the website, we can have the subscriptions being a child of the websites, which is a child of subscriptions. I did it twice. New subscription there. I don't want, website. You know what I mean? So it's that easy that I can come along and just create that parent-child table record. And, it's that simple. And here's the other thing I was talking about inside of here too. I was getting to this point of, this contact and company. Say you want to manage, say you have a list of, and this is a record, say this is an event, and you're adding, 20 or 30 in here, right? So you have all these on here. So on our control, again, I always hate the fact I don't know how many people on here. So I show you 7. We have 7 attached. And if we click on this, we go back to the act, editor, which we can add new ones. But we have this new button, and I really like this button. If we go to controls, it's called Manage Contacts. So I'm just going to move this over a little bit. And I'm going to put the button up here that says Manage Contacts. Right? And there it is. So Manage Contacts. What this control does, so again, we have 7 contacts. If I click on Manage Contact, it gives me a different look at it. So here is the 7 users, right? But on any one of those users, I can just click on Edit, and I can change his phone number. So if I'm talking to George Bailey, and I say, hey, George, I don't have your phone number, let me add it to you. And George, this is what I love. And George says, oh, by the way, who's George Bailey's wife's name? Anybody know from the?
Forgotten.
So George Bailey's wife. What?
Mary.
Okay. So George says to you, hey, add Mary to the list to make sure she gets her own emails. Well, what again would you have to do with that? You'd have to leave this contact screen. You have to go back and everything else. Well, what we have here is, here's George's record. I'm just going to duplicate it, right? So I can duplicate right from here. Duplicate all the primary stuff. And then the contact is Mary Bailey. So I just added Mary Bailey into it, and there's Mary. Oh, Bailey, I spelled it wrong. Oh, look, yeah, I spelled it wrong. So let me go and edit it. Mary Bailey, right? So now you got a sense of this manager inside of here. I can, of course, hit select. I can go back to selecting the ones just like ACT does. I can create a new one from here. I can edit, I can duplicate, or I can replace. So replace all existing contacts with a new one. This, I have a couple of clients using this because they kind of do like a save as, they duplicate it. So once that class is done, they'll reschedule for the 15th of next month, and then they come on and just say, oh, just replace all those, and we're going to add a new contact inside of here. So this is managing your contacts without having to go to the contact detail page when you're on a custom table. Okay, that's really cool, managing contact. And that's found underneath here, underneath the controls, the control, managing contact and managing companies. So we did the same thing. If you want to have multiple companies attached, then you can manage your companies, and we can select the companies and everything else that you did before, new companies and things like that. So contacts and companies. All right, Paul, do you have a question? I see a question mark there.
Just something that I was suggesting that to Scott also, how many of our financial clients will rename the whole company records part of ACT to families or households. And what they do is they have the company record as the primary family information that they can also display on the contact layout, because Impact allows you to put company fields onto the layout. But more importantly, see a roll up in one place of all the things they're doing with the entire family, but then having an individual record for each member of the family is a nice way also of dealing with the secondary contacts thing, because you can see all the other members of the company in the contact list view that you can embed with the new layout tool, where you can put lists into the contact layout. So you could list all the other members of that family record, family company record. You won't see the word company anywhere. You'll see family everywhere, but you'll see a list of those family members in the contact list, which is great. So this way you get your secondary contacts displayed right in the layout.
So what I'm showing everybody right now is inside of Impact, we're going to rename the ACT view. It's like selected company, right? And I'm going to rename company to family. And then I'm going to come inside of here and I'm going to change the icon. So I don't know, what's the family? Oh, also, I now deliver like, I think it's 2,400 different icons with it. So these were some of the older icons. You know, they're still there, of course. These were 32-bit icons, again, older ones. But we now have all these office icons, which are great. So, I mean, gauges and formats. And if we go into, let's go to
People.
So again, this is just one section. So maybe the family, you want it to look like a little folder. Again, I'm just pulling one out of the air. I'm saying, okay, I hit okay. And see, now everything says family. And when you go here, it's the family. See, it's family, new division, you know, everything else like that. So yeah, you can rename it. Like we have a lot of, you know, attorneys, they're not contacts, they're clients. You know, attorneys love legalese, and so they come along and change it to clients. And, you know, groups or opportunities they call sales, or they call it projects or whatever. So they can come into Impact and rename that. And that's all done under the imaging side of it, right? Oh, Paul loves this one. Paul, this is Paul's idea. See the ACT up here? I have a client, they have 4 main databases, and the users were getting in and out of the wrong databases. I don't know why they do it that way, but they're running 4 Inc. out of one group of 20 people, right? So they wouldn't look up here, it said ACT demo, whatever. So what we do is we have an Easter egg here. See where it says ACT? Select the top left logo. So I can come along, JPEG files. Do I have any JPEGs on my, let's see, pictures? Camera roll, oh no.
The beauty of this Easter egg is threefold. One, it produces that massive ACT logo in the top left corner. 2, it allows you to brand a customer's database so that well, people like to see their own company, and it just makes it more theirs. And it does so without having to embed their logo in a layout and give up precious layout real estate to a logo. So the logo, it goes on the top left, which is kind of a dead corner anyways. So you get the branding without having any consequence of loss of real estate.
To download, it's looking for JPEG. So let me just grab one of these. And what do I have here as a word? That's a terrible logo. Let's grab this one. Okay, that's better. And then file, save as. We want to save it as a JPEG. JPEG. So I now have this little logo. That's a JPEG inside of here. So now if I say select the top left, I left that in my downloads folder. Oh, there it is. And I say open it. And now I move this and I'll say okay. And see now it says Impact Act up there. So what we did for the one company is I just said, give me your 4 logos, company logos. So and this is company dependent. So if it's database dependent. So if I open up a different database, then it would have its own icon in it. So now the users just know, oh, that's this company because their logo is up there.
Many of our clients will have an archive database and they need to distinguish that too. So we can use the Impact Layout Editor very quickly, change the appearance on everything through themes. So users know when they're in the archive database instead of their main one. And the archive, of course, contains the contacts that were in the database before the working database has been purged. So they go looking up old contacts, but they don't want anyone to forget and then start re-entering into it. So being able to change from the existing layout to a different color rapidly is a great use of the applying themes.
Right. Well, here's one thing when as a designer, I glanced over at buttons, right? So we have buttons, and I showed you one like create an activity, right? So I'm going to create an activity, select an image, put the calendar up there, create. I think I did this a little bit, follow up, right? And it creates a call, which is great. I have that follow up, but I create the follow up call, but I also want to create a history that I reached out to them. So create, new history, and we can name everything, and we can select the image and what's a good history image. Let's use that one. And the history is a type of call meeting, and I can predefine the notes for the history, right? There's the history, and then I say, now I want to create a note. So there's a note button, so create a note. Again, select an image, and let's use a little check mark. I thought, yeah, task, whatever. So I have these 3 very simple drag and drop, right? So I'm going to say create a follow-up and see it opens up. Oh, and if you haven't seen this yet, this is Impact version 12. This is our new edit activity form, okay? So what I did was I looked at ACT, and I looked at its old, let's see, go to call here, right? That's ACT's old one. It's been useful for 30 years. I agree with it. And ACT does not want to change it ever. But the one thing everybody hates, or I hate, is that the details, it's not next to the general. Recurrence pattern, I don't use that much. Availability, I don't use that much. So the fact that I have all these tabs and everything else. So now this is our new edit activity form, right? So this is a call. So I do have the invitations under here. I do have the repeating patterns underneath there. They're underneath the buttons. Here's our resources. No resources in this database. But this is my big notes field. So I can just put in notes right here. I can set down the alarms. I can set the priorities of it. If I want this to be different design, if I go to my designer, I could say, hey, I want all my notes right here. How easy this is to do. So again, using the designer, I'm just going to take all this stuff, and I'm just going to put it down here, kind of like a form, right? And I'm just going to resize that. So there it is. There's my calls. Now, when I'm making a call, right? Making a call, I want all my calls to be, blue, right? So here's my call. So I'm going to say, create a follow-up, which is a phone call. Isn't that nice? You can see it that way. But say if we had schedule a meeting, right? So I just said schedule a meeting. Oh, look, I had already done this before. So here's the meeting, and I want a lot of notes. So each layout each activity type has its own layout behind it. So meetings, I want meetings in green. Let me just go back into here. I want again background color and custom, and I want those to be this green. Right. So now if I edit a call, right? Oh, there's my call, right? And if I want to edit a meeting, there's my meeting. There's a script attached to this. Scripting. When you open up the form, I didn't even get into this, the whole scripting engine that's inside of here. I'm just going to turn off this script right now. That's what that little dialog box was coming for. And I have color rules. Meetings are pink. So I have color rules like, oh, meetings are pink and calls are green. So I should set up the meeting. And if I go into the designer, so my meeting now, my background color will be more of that pink color, which of course matches directly with my color rule in the list view. And calls are green, so I open this up. Let me make this call green. Now I could have changed the color rules too. I'm just changing the background colors. Right, so, clear alarm. So if I went to my activity list here, see my list? It's all color coded. So if I go to a meeting, I double click on it, there's the meeting. If I go and I want to schedule a call, there's my call. And I do this all the time. I go to schedule a call, right? Well, I want to go to controls, hold on, I want fields, and I can select any field, you know, my alarm, my attachments, or whatever. I can also go to controls, and I can add new fields to that. So I could add new fields to the edit activity window. So I could add clients that do actual hours. So they have guys out in the field. Of course, they book the guys out in the field 9 to 5. But when it comes to billing, oh, the guy made phone calls. He went to lunch. He was really only working for the client for 5 hours. So they actually add a new field right to here that says actual hours, and they bill by the actual hours. The contact fields too, if we go into the properties, contact, I could set down the contact phone number. So if I wanted to, I could just say, I want the contact's phone number to be displayed here. I'm just going to copy and paste that. So now I have two, I grabbed the wrong one. I have the phone number field, and I have this other field. I'm going to go to properties. I want the phone number, and I want their city. Or any custom field that you have, right? So now, if I'm going to confirm this appointment and I double click on it, I just pick up the phone right now. I don't have to go and hunt down his phone number or whatever. It's right there on my screen.
Jim,
Right?
what about pre-filling the details area?
A script for it.
Yep.
See, some of the things like, all right, so we're in the designer and I talked about scripting, right? Yeah, let me roll back for a second because we go way down the path here. Let's go back to here. You remember we were talking about these buttons, and scripting gets involved with these buttons. Again, so this button is kind of a script, but it's hard coded. Like there is my history, right? And if I said, you know, create my note, there's my note field, right? Now, if I come into here and I say the layout, even on this create the follow-up, if I go back to properties, it says open activity edit. I don't have to say open it. I just want an activity 7 days in the future, right? So if I want to 7 days in the future, days offset, I want 7 calendar days or business days. I want it at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I want it regarding this, right? So it's going to create that. But say you want something more advanced than these simple, again, simple buttons that we can come along and set properties to. We go to buttons, we have scripts. So I'm going to come along into this script here. Script button, I dragged it on the screen. This is our script editor. And what we've done, last version, it wasn't this easy. Hopefully we standardized it, made it easier. It's point and click now. Like here's the actions. So if I want to create a call, if I just double click, it writes the script for us. If I want to create a new opportunity, or I want to add a product to an opportunity, or I want to attach the contact to an opportunity. These are all scripts that we could do. So I'm just going to use the second one, create a lead. Create an activity, app is for act, it's a lead, and true means to open it up. If I just change that to false, then it'll create it without opening up. Again, this is scripting, right? But in the scripts, what we can do is something more advanced. If we go into conditions, we can say, ask a question, right? So this, do you want to answer yes or no to this complex question, right? So I'm just going to write that in there, yes or no. And when I'm writing the scripting, I have a run test here now. So we say run. See, what's going to happen when the script runs, it's going to ask the user to say, do you want to answer yes or no? Is this a hot lead or not hot lead? Or is it, classifying it? You could also write a whole scripting in a sales call. Did they say yes to this? Do they have a rental properties? And then once they answer yes or no, then this happens. So if the result is yes, well, if it's yes, then of course I want to create a follow-up call with that. If it's no, then we're going to just do nothing, right? Or maybe we just create a note. So I'm not going to create a call, I'm going to create a note. So again, this is all kind of a scripting language. And if we say, run the test, we'll just leave it that way, right? So there is the test. And what happened is I answered yes to that test. And see, it created the phone call for us. So if I run this test and say no, then this event happened, which is nothing's in there. So again, very simple, run the test. Yes, run the test. There's your phone call. And if we say, well, create the call, we say it's false, I'm going to run the test, I'm going to answer yes to it. And it created the call, and that call is attached to the current contact in the background, right? So scripting gets really powerful. Ask a question stuff.
Populating tables.
Populating tables. Is the field greater than or less than this? Is the field empty? Does a field equal another? So I'll just give you the scripts inside of here to do. Values.
So if somebody has a campaign table and they want to have the tracking of how people have been responding from campaigns that have been called out or emails that have come back in, and this is where the email automation might come in as well, but that is populating a campaign custom table really affirms the value of the custom tables, but also makes the whole entry almost act transparent, where they're just putting the information into a screen. It's not really learning how to do act. It's just walking them right through the steps they need to do so anyone can sit down and start using it.
Right, yes. And like here, we have this one, run test. Do you want to answer yes or no? And yes, I don't have anything in here. But yes, instead of creating an activity, Paul just said, I want to set the value of a field. So I want to say the address field value equals XXX. So there is the little script. And actually, I had my cursor in the wrong position. So now when the users answer yes, the scripting engine will set the value in the contact table of the field called address with XXXX, or was not interested. Whatever you want to do. Very interested. And then Paul was alluding to the fact of the email automation. You can hang an email automation off of there to say, hey, if address one was interested, let's just say not, was interested, then at 2 o'clock in the morning, Impact's going to send them emails for, oh, here's our brochure, here's this, here's that, right? So that's scripting. And as you can see in this scripting, you can get scripts to do into custom tables. So this is set value of a contact, but here's all my tables. Here's the mortgage table, and the opportunity table. I have a rental table. We could just come along into here and get values from any table, any field. We have operator, instructors, again, just to try to ease the transition of knowing. He is very busy. Math functions, this was a big one. People were always saying to us, I want to know how old something is. Now, again, I have that date label, which would show it to you, but they wanted to calculate it so they can run a report on it. And so we have things like, what's the current hour? You want to add minutes. You want the date difference. This is it. So I want the date difference. So we could actually say, let's just copy this out. And if we wanted to do something like this, values, set the value of this field, and I'm just going to put a marker in there. Instead of saying field X, I could say, set the value of the address one of the difference of the date fields. And this may be, let's see, date field one. You just have to go and say fields and say your contact, and it's the difference between created date versus the last edit date. I'm just, where's the edit date, right? So there it is by just pointing and clicking. Now that does get complicated. I'm not saying scripting is, wow, everybody, but we have users that have done this stuff for themselves and have written some very great business workflow criteria right inside of this scripting engine. All right, that was date operators. Math functions, this is another great one. People put fields that are character fields and they expect you to calculate from them. So we can convert a character field to a numeric field so you can times it by X, right? We have the floors, maximum, round to whole numbers, string replacements, and then controls, right? So again, these are a lot of things inside of this custom script. Now, if you got the power of the idea of the custom script, let's take this a step further, right? Say you make a phone call as a hot lead and you want to do all 4 of these things, right? Well, you can click, 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 click. But what we have is we build up actually a workflow. That's a workflow pattern. When a sales guy makes a phone call, this is what I tell him to do. And I'm just cleaning this up, right? He creates a follow-up, new history, creates a note, and runs a script. We want him to do that all the time. So if I take this workflow control over here, and I'm just going to make it this big, and I take my buttons and put them inside of the workflow, what happens now is it's a WYSIWYG editor. What you see is what you get. When I click run workflow down here, when it's live, it's going to run this event, run that event, run that event, and then run that event. So it's going to run all 4 events with one click. So I'm telling people, hey, you talk to George Bailey, Liberty Saving Loan? Great. Is he interested in going to next month's webinar? Yes. Run the workflow. Run them all now. Yes. So it created a follow-up. Now remember, it created the follow-up, and I set that to being automatic. It doesn't come forward. So there's the history. I talked to George, and there's the note. Again, I'm just clicking, OK here, and then run script. Do you want to answer yes or no? So as you can see, very simple. I'll say yes. I'll answer yes to that. Very simple. By coming into the designer now, you can create some really powerful workflow patterns for your users. And not only just create these powerful workflow patterns, make it look nice, give them their own icons, make the data entry system much more flexible and clean. And I just don't like the ACT label, so I always have a tendency to come in here, apply a theme, add the labels, and I want it to be like a lighter blue. Oh, that's a green. Lighter blue, and add the rounded styles. And it added the rounded style to here, background color. So I can actually change my background color even on the workflow. So there it is. So let me look over and see if anybody has any questions, because we are an hour in, which is fine. I don't mind the time. Nope, we don't have any other questions. So again, since it's been an hour, I think it's a good time to kind of jump out of this. But I want to thank everybody for attending, and hopefully this deep dive into the designer is well worth your time, and of course your clients' time. They're going to really appreciate it. All right, I want to thank everybody for coming. Over and out.